On stage Romain Dillet from TechCrunch, who's going to tell us who are the panelists and what are you going to talk about. Something about investment trends 2017.
Hello everyone, I'm Romain Dillet from TechCrunch, and today we're talking about investment, not just in Central and Eastern Europe, but all around the world. Where should I see it? Maybe here. And I have three great panelists today. Vitaly Golomb, who is currently investor and global startup evangelist at HP Tech Ventures, I think. He's also the author of Accelerated Startup, the new business school, so he's very passionate about acceleration. We've got Tak Lo, who is partnered at Zeroth.ai, which is a brand new accelerator based in Hong Kong, focused on artificial intelligence and machine learning startups in Asia. He's also been involved as an angel investor in some startups and spent some time in Europe and New York City in both startup communities. And I have Ondrej Bartos, who is a late addition to this panel. So I don't know much about him, but I think he's pretty famous in the region. So he's going to talk mostly, I guess, about investment in Central Europe because it's his main point of focus. All right, guys, thank you for coming. Let's start maybe with Vitaly. You seem to be traveling all around the world. I keep seeing you on the speaker page of various tech conferences. So maybe let's get this question out of the way. What is the most striking difference, according to you, between the US and Europe when it comes to startup investment?
So yes, I'm a professional airline passenger. Let's see, so biggest difference between US and non-US investments. So if you look around US, the ecosystem is much more mature. I talked about it earlier this morning. The cluster of innovation in Silicon Valley is obviously complete and has been under construction since about 1955 or so. That doesn't exist anywhere else in the same scale. So when companies are looking to get to a large size, they're technology companies that are venture-backed, that are looking to grow and become unicorns, become very valuable very quickly, they have very few places where they can go and find the management talent that's experienced in building such companies. In Europe, you have lots of engineering talent, especially Central and Eastern Europe, and very little or almost none sales and marketing experience. So you have people that have bright ideas, but they don't, bright engineering ideas, but they don't know what market to point them at. And when they do stumble on something that's valuable, they may not know how to take it to market and grow the same way talented marketers can grow much less superior, much more inferior products in the US. So really what's missing is that sales and marketing knowledge and experience here.
Ondrej, is that something you would say as well? Would you advise companies starting here in the region to maybe open another office in the US?
Yeah, that's generally what we do very often. So as you said at the beginning, I am focused on Central Europe. And I totally agree with what Vitaly said. The difference is huge. On the other hand, I am firm believer in the engineering and technical talent and competence of the region. And I actually believe that over time, this is gaining importance. If we take a look at what's happening in Silicon Valley in terms of talent war for talent, war for developers and engineers, who cost a lot of money and they very often do mediocre job. I really believe that Central and Eastern Europe has something to offer.
I hope there is nobody from the Silicon Valley in the room because that was a bit harsh.
I'm telling them.
Yeah, I'll actually add to that. So this is absolutely true. But it's not enough. So ideally, my last company before going to the dark side, I had a main office in Bay Area, venture-backed in Bay Area, engineering office we opened in Kiev, and we're on a Scala stack. Some of you know what that is. Very complicated, very hard to find talent. And in Kiev, we're able to hire people. Within a couple of months, we were able to build out the engineering office, where in Silicon Valley, not a chance, because we were competing with LinkedIn, Foursquare, and Twitter for that particular stack.
So you agree?
Absolutely. But here's what needs to happen, kind of the next step, is when you have companies that come from Central and Eastern Europe especially, and they eventually at least move their headquarters or kind of outsource their sales and marketing to Silicon Valley, what they learn there, and once they exit, if they sell their company and they get that experience of going from zero to hero, they need to come back to their home country and pass that experience and knowledge on to everybody else, to the next generation. And in startups, a generation is about 5 years, right? And they need to angel invest money into their home country, not just say, bye, I'm from Romania, one day I was born there, and I'm never coming back, like many people do. So my family moved from Ukraine when I was 8 years old, and I try to actually come back to Ukraine often and provide that bridge. And I think that needs to happen more when people gain that experience.
Cool. And Tak, you're based in Hong Kong. Do you see the kind of same questions happening with entrepreneurs in Hong Kong, thinking about maybe opening an office in the US as well?
Yeah, so let me kind of just give some context. So yeah, I was Facebooking live when you introed me. So I was Facebooking live because Hussein missed his flight, and I was making fun of him for literally just missing his flight. So before moving back to Hong Kong about a year ago, so I'm originally from Hong Kong. I was at TechStars London, and I started with John Bradford, if he's here right now. I'm at TechStars London. So I saw literally the start, I guess, of London to some degree, from that trajectory to pretty much the second and last cohort, or maybe the last cohort, before moving back to Hong Kong. And now I've actually started an accelerator focused on AI machine learning in Hong Kong, which is tremendously early, right? If you think about like AI machine learning is early. It's great in Silicon Valley. It's kind of maybe not so early here. It's much earlier in Asia. So from those two context kind of points, right? So yeah, definitely, you see, it's kind of funny. I'm very American. I served in the U.S. military. So I buy into the American dream, but the American dream isn't right for everybody. And I think to these two gentlemen points, in the sense, like, if you didn't go to Stanford, Berkeley, or Caltech, or you didn't go to Y Combinator or 500 Startups, you have a pretty hard shot in hell to have some sort of network advantage in that area, right? So we see Singaporean startups. So the thing is, in Asia, there are two capital hubs, right? In Europe, you've got London and maybe Berlin as a finance hub. In Asia, you've got three. You've got Hong Kong, Beijing, and Singapore. And so probably Singapore and Beijing are the two most advanced. So a lot of those Singaporean startups do end up starting to go to Silicon Valley a lot. But oftentimes, because again, they didn't go to YC, or they didn't have those network advantages, they go there, set up a really expensive office, hang out on Galvanize or WeWork, and then come back saying, we spent so much money, we can't hire, we go back to Singapore, right? Or open up a desk, right? A remote desk. I think, so from that perspective, I think everyone wants to go, but it's not right for everyone. And in many ways, it's actually easier for them to actually stay. And we saw that in London as well, to stay in their home country, because oftentimes they have those network advantages where they can hire, and they actually have local funding that's available to them only because they're local players, right? So in Europe, you have regional funds, or funds that can only invest in certain countries, and you see that same, there's much more, in fact, in Asia, right? So you have Singaporean funding, you have provincial funding in China, you have Hong Kong funding as well. So oftentimes the advice is stay there until you have actually critical mass before you actually go, because if you have no advantage in Silicon Valley, you're just wasting money.
Interesting. That's a very different take from the two others. Interesting. So, but I'm curious though, many startups want to become the global leader in what they are doing. Do you think, maybe you or Vitaly, you can answer this one. Do you think you can become a global leader even if you stay in your country
Yes and no.
for
So,
years and years, I would say?
so as I look at companies across the world, they're kind of two different plays. One is, and they're both paths to success. One is becoming a regional leader in a particular category. So, for example, e-commerce throughout Eastern Europe. There's no Amazon of Romania. There's no Amazon of Ukraine, of et cetera, et cetera. You can build a very large multi-billion-dollar business by being vertically integrated and being the Amazon for a particular country, let's say. There are other technologies that are born anywhere, right? So, for example, machine learning, right? As an example, there are 4 universities in the world right now that are graduating core AI PhDs. University of Waterloo in Canada, Carnegie Mellon on the East Coast, not in Silicon Valley, Cambridge, and University of Tokyo, right? And Tokyo government, I think, just announced actually that they're going to be doing a robotics lab that's focused on Japan first, right? So to give you an example. So that's an example of technology that can enable a lot of different things. That's global technology. And those companies can and are and will be born anywhere. It's just a question of if they're achieving scale and they're truly trying to become leaders in a particular technology. Again, the one thing that Silicon Valley has that no place else right now is this level of experience in management, in building these companies. You can basically become a really good engineer anywhere in the world. It's really, it's specific information. It's a lot of information you need to learn, a little bit of experience. But in business, you can go to Stanford, you can go to Harvard and get a business degree. But I can tell you, lots of fresh Stanford MBAs with high IQ and zero experience, they're useless. They're absolutely useless. It's much more about the experience of going through a company, and startups are just a completely different beast that you can't learn in case studies in business school, right? That's what's really missing. So that would be my answer, is that they can be born anywhere, but at a certain point, at this point in time, they almost have to move to Silicon Valley to grow. There are fewer exceptions, companies that become big locally, that are global plays, not regional plays. But for the most part, that one resource is just missing everywhere else right now.
And Ondrej, have you seen a change over the past few years in Central Europe? Have you seen entrepreneurs becoming smarter and moving faster?
I think the trends are positive. So what I do see is a lot more higher quality projects and better thinking around stuff. Also, people generally have more access and better access to, so many resources, guys like YC and Andreessen Horowitz, 500 startups are doing tremendous job in sort of open sourcing the sort of knowledge or information, if you will. I would like to just briefly get back to, is it possible to build a unicorn, something, really superior out of this region? And I quite agree with what's been said. What I would like to remind, and not just because I'm from the Czech Republic and this is a Czech story, but there actually is a unicorn that was born and raised in the Czech Republic alone, which is called Avast. It's currently the largest antivirus. I know Bitdefender does not like to hear that, but Avast is the largest in terms of the number of users, and it was born and raised in the Czech Republic. Their headquarters had been in Prague until like 2 years back, and it was a unicorn already. So only recently they are more and more moving the center of gravity of management to the US. So, by this evidence, it is possible. Are the chances bigger if you stay in the region? Probably not. The chances probably are still bigger if you move over to Silicon Valley.
I actually have a point to make. I actually fundamentally disagree with that question, which is, can they be global players? And you have to take context of which what does global mean, right? Global, it's funny, living in Asia now, right? Global, if you're in the US, global means US-centric and, you know, start from there. But if you're in Asia, global means you start from China, and even China has 1 billion people for you to kind of hack into. India has another 1 billion people for you to hack into. So really, why do you need global if you can just hack into those 2 markets, right? So fundamentally, it's, you know, I like the definition of the shifting of it, which is how do you build $1 billion business, or whatever, right? How do you build a big business as a metric rather than global? Because I think global is contextually driven, right? And then I think fundamentally it is possible, right? Let's just take, you know, anomalies like China, India out of it because of the fact that they just have demographics working to their advantage. But Australia has done very well in building a very, very big company. Singapore might actually build a couple big companies as well. And I think it's just entrepreneurs taking small problems, taking a problem that actually, that they want to work on, and building and trying to scale out and trying to realize where in the market they can solve it. You'll see a lot of big companies coming out of Japan, but you'll never hear about stuff coming out of Japan. Korea is the same as well, right? They're global businesses, they're big businesses as well. It's because they solve very specific pains in a very specific market, and they found a revenue model that works for them in that particular market. So I think it's possible. And now I don't know the dynamics in Central and Eastern Europe, right? But I think taking, again, the extrapolation of those learning lessons, I think there must be a market similarity within the CE region, and there must be a way to extract value in order to make a big business out of it.
Well, I'll add a little bit to this. So, I mean, there's a little bit of contradiction there because if they are in a single country, they are regional by definition, even if it's a big market. And Chinese companies have a very special environment because they enjoy government protectionism, which basically blocks all the US companies from coming in. Google, Facebook, Twitter, you name it. So that market is completely...
All countries in Asia are actually supported by governments anyway. So.
But Singapore, for example, tiny population, 7 million, relatively speaking, the companies there have to be global almost from day one and operate across borders. The other thing is that when these anomalies do happen, they are amazingly great. So Skype, coming out of Estonia with 1.2 million population, because that company grew there and exploded in a great way there, it created 100 people that were experienced with building a unicorn. And a lot of those people, basically the entire Estonian angel market are ex-Skype people, almost entirely. They came out of that company, and not only do they have the capital to invest in the next generation, but they're great mentors. Same thing, if you look back a few years before that, you look at ICQ in Israel. So before ICQ, there wasn't a whole lot going on in Israeli startup ecosystem. And after ICQ, it was a $500 million acquisition by Microsoft. Microsoft? I think it was Microsoft.
Yahoo, I think.
Is it Yahoo? Yahoo, maybe. Yeah. Anybody still heard of Yahoo? Too soon. So it creates this wonderful effect where it graduates a bunch of people with experience that can become angel investors. They have the capital and the experience to support the next generation.
Actually, I think it was AOL who acquired.
Actually, so I think there's a point here, which is, I think what you said about the fact that there are governmental kind of protection, which is true to some degree. I think a lot of those countries do have it. But I think it's not unlike advantages that American companies command, right? In the sense, like, if you go to Stanford, if you go to Berkeley, there are certain network advantages and American culturist kind of, advantages that are...
I'll totally disagree with that.
Oh, okay. I can tell you, well, I think that is correct.
So,
in Asia...
So most of the founders in Silicon Valley are actually foreign-born.
Let me finish my point, though. So the thing is, if you go to Japan right now and you try to create a company, I don't think you can. I don't, because there are Japanese nuances that I don't think you can understand. Now, the thing is, though, to your point about most companies are created by immigrants, I think that's true. But you also have to realize, I was an immigrant in the US, but I'm still very American. Now, what is the relative, like, when did they go to the US, right? If they went when they're 2, they're not really, they're more considered Americans, right? So I think there are certain, those advantages of, like, those network advantages and the moat that one can create, I think it's present anywhere. Uber went to China and competed head on, right? They had Chinese investors. It wasn't the fact that it was government regulations. Both had government advantages is the fact that they understood the culture that much better, and was actually, in China's case, hustled, because Chinese workers work 6 days a week, and they work, I don't know, 15, 16, 17 hours a day, and they literally live in the office, right? Those advantages you just cannot replace, right? So I don't know. I think all networks and all regions have their own advantages. It's just how you tap into that.
So statistic is that more than half of the founders in Silicon Valley are foreign born, and most of them come over around college time or later. All right, so Silicon Valley is very open as far as that goes. If you can get through the US immigration bullshit, you can start a company in the US, no problem.
That's a big if, though. But
That's a big if, yes. And Canada is capitalizing on that, by the way. I don't know if the Canadian consul is still here, which is great for them. On the other hand, and I have first-hand experience with this, or second-hand, I should say, if you are a small company that's trying to go and start a business as a US citizen, for example, in China, good luck to you. You will have a hell of a time trying to even rent an office, open a bank account, or anything. It's incredibly difficult, and it's by design. If you are a big company like Uber that was burning something like $1.5 billion a year in China, trying to compete with a local company, yes, part of it is culture, but on the other hand, Uber in China was hiring Chinese that were working just as hard as they would at any other Chinese company. So it's not that factor. It's not that Uber was trying to compete from San Francisco with a bunch of lazy people against Chinese. So Chinese work ethic is unbelievable. So if you want to, I recommend everybody to go visit and really understand markets in Southeast Asia especially. The work ethic there is going to eat Europe. Mark my words. People are busting their ass, especially countries like France, where people are kind of coasting. You're going to see that, Asia is going to eat it. And governments in Europe are getting smart enough. Now there are laws being passed in Germany where if Chinese companies are trying to buy big German industrial players, the government has a veto right on that acquisition. Because China is now, in some ways they cannot compete, but they're going in and buying up industry in Germany and other parts of Europe. So it's a really interesting dynamic.
It's actually all across the world. Bloomberg just did a report on actually the level of Chinese M&A. It's unprecedented because not only in a sense like there's a large capital base, there's also the fact that money just can't get out. And so whenever they can, right, they siphon it through different vehicles, and when they can, they want to diversify into different assets, right? Because equity assets or the equity markets are propped up. Housing is all is fundamentally all bought, and they want to diversify in some other assets other than startups. So I agree in the sense like Chinese companies, and I think that's fundamentally why we made that bet of going into Asia, is that work ethic. I mean, that's the very essence of what we look at when we look at early stage companies, right? You can look at technical talent, and to some degree you can train that, but you really can't train hustle. You either you got it or you don't. And with a lot of Asian founders, and I don't want to be stereotypical, but it is that ethic it's unimaginable. And it's actually not just, you know what, I don't want to stereotype. And I think it's definitely cultural, because China has actually gone through, if you think about it, 1 billion people at scale, going from nothing to 21st century has been, it's unprecedented, right? I'm actually not confusing my English now. It's never happened in the world. And so these guys that have gone through Mao and now actually trying to rise up, they're all very, very hungry, because they realize, they remember when their parents had nothing to eat. So I think it's not just stereotypical Chinese. I think it's a fact that culturally we went through that, and it was very difficult for them.
Okay, I'm curious though. How would you expose, let's say, the Romanian entrepreneurs in the room to this kind of work culture and work ethics? Do you, for instance, Ondrej, would you recommend entrepreneurs from the CEE region to go to China for 6 months or a year, for instance?
Well, I wouldn't. As someone who was born in a communist country, I have a very strong bias against China. So I would not, and I am not going there either for quite some time, which might not be advantageous for me, but I think it is true that you either have the hustle or you don't. It's very hard to learn. The only way to learn it is probably to sort of spark the hunger. I really do feel like the region needs to see more very, very successful stories in order to spark the hunger and the sort of ambition in people. And I don't believe there are any other shortcuts except for the Skypes of this world. Because every Skype actually makes a huge shortcut to, you know, the ambition and the hunger.
Yeah, especially for a tiny community like the Estonian community.
But yeah, but you know, in the Czech Republic, we have our Skype, which is Avast, and you know, by the way, one of the largest investors in my fund are founders of Avast, and they are active angel investors.
That's why you love Avast.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, exactly. No other reason.
So an interesting solution, maybe an interesting answer to your question. So a good friend of mine, Kylie Ng, who runs 500 startups in Southeast Asia, he did a great talk, so I'll give him all the credit. He calls it shithole state of mind. So the shithole state of mind is, you know, he comes from Malaysia and he built a couple of great companies. And it's what I notice in Central and Eastern Europe and understanding and knowing the culture is that everybody thinks that, oh, well, we can't do it from here. We're in a tiny country. The GDP is small. We're not as smart as them. We're not, you know, well, the women are prettier, but we're not as smart as them, and we can't do it. But reality is you can. And this effect that shows when a big company comes out of a small country, all of a sudden that proves to a lot of people like, wow, they're just like me, and they were able to do it. The belief level goes through the roof, and it motivates a lot of people. So my message to you would be that, yes, you can absolutely do it, but it's not going to be easy, and it's not easy for anybody. Nobody's going to hand it to you. Nobody hands it to anybody. There's no like overnight success. Overnight success takes 10 years of hard work. So you're going to have to do it just like anybody else, and you're going to have to work harder because you have fewer resources here. And you might have to get on a plane and go spend some time in Silicon Valley and learn how things are done. Maybe even go and work at a company there for a couple of years, come back and then start a company here. Or go to Southeast Asia and see how work ethics should be and try to build a culture in your company that you have the hardest working team, right? All those things are going to help you. You have to fill your brain with that knowledge and bust your ass. That's the only answer to it.
Interesting. I think that's what I noticed as well. I think that's what I noticed as well in France, because I'm French, where apparently the work ethics sucks.
I spent a month in France last year. That's called trolling level 9,000.
Yeah. I think what I noticed in France, covering French startups for years and years, is that changes in an ecosystem takes decades. And nothing is going to happen overnight. So if you have some successful entrepreneurs, you're going to see the results maybe 5 years later. And it's a long, long process. I wanted to finish with a few quick questions because we're on the investor panel. I'm going to give you 2 company names, and you're going to pick one of them as a potential company that you would invest in. So let's start with PayPal versus Stripe. Which one would you have invested in?
When?
When they were at the same stage, let's say.
PayPal.
PayPal.
He said Stripe. He said he's being contrarian. Twitter or LinkedIn?
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
That's a funny game. All right, Uber or Didi Shuxing?
Trump or Hillary? Trump.
Uber or Didi Shuxing?
Uber.
Didi.
I think I can see a trend. Snapchat or Instagram?
Instagram.
To be honest, Instagram. I still don't see Snapchat.
Snapchat's going for the IPO.
Alibaba or Amazon?
Amazon.
Amazon, never Alibaba.
Oh yeah, Alibaba. It's funny. It's totally information asymmetry because I see them so present in China and across Asia. Yeah, it's so funny.
I have a couple more, including one that you're going to like. Slack or Skype?
Skype.
That's a tough one. Neither of them were obvious at the beginning.
So both suck?
No. I think I'd have to say Slack because if you're looking at seed stage, you would never look at, oh, let me invest in this company that's going to go global from Estonia that's never produced anything big. That would be...
That's
so
the part I would have loved.
Yeah.
The
But
challenge.
But
Sorry,
yeah.
you said Slack or Skype?
No, Skype.
Skype. Oh,
Skype.
this is so I have to agree with somebody.
The pattern broke.
Damn it! No, Skype. One of my investors is one of the co-founders of Skype, so I have to say Skype.
Okay, so you're conflicted, basically. Xiaomi or Nest?
Nest.
Is Xiaomi still in business? Nest.
Is Nest still a business?
Yeah, that's correct as well. I don't know. I guess yeah, that's right. Xiaomi. Well, sorry. You said if you had invested right in the early stages, right? Fundamentally for both. I think Nest.
Cool. And the last one, Deliveroo or Postmates?
Neither?
Neither.
So I know William from Deliveroo. So
You can just say all your buddies, basically.
Venture
know, but
capital is
like,
a
I
fund
just-
your friend's business.
yeah,
Yeah.
But it wasn't
I agree.
obvious though, and I don't think he would admit it was obvious. And Hussein invested in Deliveroo too.
All right, Deliveroo then. Thank you very much. That's all the time we have. Thank you.